Welcome to the Husky Hockey Podcast, your number one resource for everything Husky hockey, college hockey related. And I just kind of want to start out here with a quick question.
Sure.
You know, in your television viewing history, did you ever watch a show on VH1 called Behind the Music?
Yes, I did.
You know, they always profiled bands, usually rock bands that would have a lot of fame early on in their career. Then it all comes crashing down. There's always a pivotal moment about minute 15 to 20 and talks about all their drug abuse, drug addiction, etc., etc. I feel like this series against UND was and then it all came crashing down. Not to say the whole season, not to say that, but all of the optimism and all of the uncertainty that UND had going into this series, it all just blew up in the Huskies' face. It was just atrocious to watch.
So you're saying this was the weekend that they crashed the tree into the car high as a kite.
Yeah. I don't know. Def Leppard lost an arm, right? The drummer did?
Rick Allen, yep.
It looked like the Huskies were playing one-handed. Huskies get blown out the first night, 7-1. End up tying the second night on Saturday, but losing in the shootout. Let's just start here with Friday's game. It was just so frustrating to see because I've never seen the defense play as poorly or as uncontrolled as they did this series. And really the whole team itself, nobody was on the same page.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Nobody played well on Friday. A couple of those goals were just directly created through just botched passes from the defense. Pert, at the fourth or the fifth goal, these all sort of blend together. Pert had a bad turnover, basically just handed the guy a goal.
When he tried to flip the puck out.
Yep.
Perbix had one where he literally walked in front of the net. Yep. UND was pressuring, and you walk right in front of the net like that. And I get the game was out of hand, but I've never seen a Huskies team actually quit like they did. You know, you're looking at Friday's game when, you know, they were blown out. Usually, you know, we've talked about when the Huskies blow out other teams, that third period usually is, you know, kind of lopsided towards the team that is getting blown out because the other team just kind of wants to get out of there. North Dakota was just sending a message. I mean, we only got 3 shots on goal the whole third period. They had more goals than we had shots. Equal number of goals than we had shots. Meyer had a play where it was, you know, kind of halfway in, halfway out, and he ended up doing neither and getting burned. That created an odd man rush. Trable had a misplay. I mean, these are all people who I've raved about in the past, and just all of them decide to lay an egg here this weekend.
Yeah, Trable got benched on Saturday. He expected someone to take his seat. Not that Trable was glaringly bad, but he wasn't good. But the whole team wasn't very good. I thought this was the worst weekend of the year for Hrenak. He gets pulled on Friday. I didn't like the first goal. It is a tip, but that gets the weekend off to a rough start. I wouldn't blame him on the other 3 very much. He wasn't the reason they lost, put it that way. But Saturday, I thought he played poorly as well. And, you know, teams are going to have egg-laying weekends like this. But, and they played very, I mean, they got a point on the weekend. They got a tie. And for that reason alone, you can't put this below the Western Michigan sweep, which is also, I thought, a very bad all-around effort. And from a pairwise perspective, this didn't hurt them at all. I think they went into the weekend at 5 or 6, and they're the same as what they were.
We went in at 6, so we moved up to 5.
Oh, we actually moved up.
Loss.
I thought it was, maybe they were tied for 5th or something. I thought they were right around this. I thought they were the same place, but nonetheless, it didn't hurt you from that perspective. It hurt you from a conference points standpoint, if we're interested in that. I mean, we're closer to 7th place now than 4th. Not that I think that CC is going to threaten to overtake them in the conference standings, but just an illustration of the hole that they've dug here. Now that the Duluth games have been rescheduled, really got to win like 3 out of 4 against them minimum to have a chance at home ice. And then at least holding serve in the other games. I think, and now going into the stretch, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, going into the stretch now without Perbix and Hentges for the Olympics for the next 3 weeks. 7 games that you'll be missing. If you include at least 7 games, if you include the one Duluth game that they'll definitely miss. And you got Denver next weekend. I thought it was big that they got a tie on Saturday. If they would have won the game, I probably would have thought it was the biggest win of the year, just because you're going into Denver next weekend. Always a tough place to play, and Denver is very good this year. And then you got Western, who's a team that's given you fits in the last few years. And yes, those are home games, but you got a chance here that season's going to go sideways. You're going to be without those 2 players, plus Larson. It's going to be a different vibe on the bench. And you're going to be shorthanded from 2 of your top contributors. So salvaging a non-loss out of that Saturday game was a big feat for the Huskies.
It was a big feat, but how it happened was
they should have won the game.
They should have won it. And I was so excited actually after the Huskies did get blown out. And here's the thing that kind of irks me the most is that you're on 4 straight. You're on a nice little win streak after a little bit of a break. And North Dakota is absolutely reeling. And, this is the time to come out and really show the rest of the league, what kind of team you are. And they put just altogether a lackluster effort, and they get run out of the building. I was excited on Saturday to really watch how they are going to react and how they're going to bounce back and what kind of fire they're going to have. And they came out, thought the first period, was pretty good. And, in the end, you got 2 kind of breakaway goals. Maybe they were a little bit lucky. Fine. I'll take it, obviously. But it's just to see that one just kind of slip through our fingers when you had the control, it was just really frustrating to watch. And these are the games and these are the times where Husky teams of the past, I would say better part of a decade have really, really stepped up. And this whole bounce back, it was just kind of withering and just died there after Sanderson's goal in the third.
Which you saw coming. That they had been. I thought the turning point in the game on Saturday was the second goal, which was just a terrible goal to give up. Twice on the weekend, North Dakota had guys score their first goals of the year that Ness had never scored in 2 years. And then this Jandrick just kind of lobs a floater in from the point, a pretty harmless looking shot, and Hrenak, I don't know, didn't see it or what.
Well, North Dakota did a great job of getting players in front of Hrenak, and I think our defense did a terrible job of clearing people out.
Right.
And they were able to just throw some seeing eye pucks through the legs of defenders, and it went past Hrenak. North Dakota was so good at that. North Dakota was so good at like feather touch passes that just behind the defense to get to open ice that their player was able to swoop in and make a play on the puck. And we just didn't have the effort really at all to combat that. Plenty of players, I harped on the defense, but I felt Walker was invisible. I felt Brodzinski really didn't add much. Hentges had a completely off weekend. It was just a calamity of errors for everyone involved.
Yeah, and so you have that it's 3-1 at that point, less than 3-2 goal, and then obviously North Dakota really controls the play in the third period, and this is a matter of time. And a great play by Sanderson. I thought the best player on the ice all weekend, pretty clearly.
Very much so. Yep.
It'll be nice to be able to cheer for him legitimately when he's at the Olympics here. But I thought at 3-1 there, St. Cloud gets whoever gets the next goal there is going to win that game, and Hrenak lets in a bad goal, and the any momentum that they may have had at that point was pretty much gone. The other reason I didn't like the effort was, so they North Dakota pulls Helston after the first period. He gives up the first 3 goals, and again, a couple of those on breakaways, and I think the other one was on the power play. I didn't really fault him for those goals either, but he bring in Driscoll, who Huskies took good advantage of in the series in St. Cloud, and he's kind of been on the mat as well. being unable to pop one in on him, even including the shootout and 0 for 4 attempts on Driscoll, I thought that was a wasted opportunity. They seemed to pepper him early in the second period when he was first put in the game, but pretty much after that second goal for North Dakota, the amount of offensive chances for St. Cloud kind of vanished and weren't able to sustain any real pressure on a goalie that is being pulled at this point of the season. So because he's been so ineffective. So yeah, from an offensive standpoint, they didn't do quite enough.
I would say other than the penalties in the second period, St. Cloud didn't really have any sustained puck pressure at all in the offensive zone. And any chance that we did have on Driscoll, including in overtime, it was incredibly low percentage shots from way too far out, not in prime scoring areas. You got to get to those scoring areas, and we just didn't penetrate. You made it really easy for Driscoll.
Yeah. It was a frustrating weekend, and yeah, like I said, one good period out of 6 on the weekend, 6+ if you include the overtime session on Saturday. It's generally not going to be a recipe to get any points. So, like I said, getting the 1 point is, I guess, worthy of faintest of praise. But yeah, just going into this tough stretch now the next 2 weeks, my motto is just don't get swept. Even get a tie or a overtime loss or something out of these. Just don't get swept. You'll be fine, I think. But it's troubling to see, road efforts this year. 2 worst series this year have been on the road, UND and North Dakota. I mean, granted, they're good teams and all that. But it seems like they're quite a different team when they're not on home ice. And yeah, you're going to get a big test this weekend against Denver based on how they played this weekend. And it's hockey. It's random. You look at Denver last weekend. And, they had to score 2 goals in the last 5 minutes to even get it to overtime against a terrible Miami team. We were talking about how bad Miami was last week and how, Denver was just going to walk in there and scoop up 6 points, and they did. Or, well, I guess they got 5 points because it took them 1 overtime to win the Friday game, and they didn't look all that great on Saturday either. So it's possible that the switch is flipped and they look great. Huskies look great this weekend. It would pleasantly surprise me, I guess. But just don't get swept. And it's got a chance here to go real sideways real quick. So let's hope that they can step it up, stop the bleeding, and get back to what works for them. I don't know if the Miami series kind of gave them a big head or all that cliched stuff, but certainly didn't bring their A game to Grand Forks, and I made a good, not great North Dakota team look pretty good. And so it was a frustrating weekend, pretty much all around. So let's hope that they can step up and right the ship here in the same way that North Dakota did this last weekend.
I completely agree with this North Dakota squad. Other than Sanderson, it's a really pedestrian team.
Yeah, there's not much there. I mean, they're getting carried. They're getting carried along in large part by these transfer guys, these old CCHA guys like Calder and Ford. It's not like they're brimming with top end talent. And yeah, aside from Sanderson, even Gaber is probably their most hyped forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, Gaber, Calder had some moments, but I wasn't really impressed with, I would say, anybody else, other than they kept talking up Connor Ford and his face-off prowess, which
St. Cloud was murdered. Oh my God! I'm glad you brought this up because
oh my gosh, that linesman was just driving me batty.
Number 40. It's bad when I have to look up the name of a linesman. Tyler Liffrig. He lives in Bismarck. He's like a financial advisor. That guy has zero business getting paid to officiate hockey games. And I thought the officiating, not that I don't think it mattered much as far as the result, because I don't think it was tilted one way or the other. The officiating was god-awful all weekend. That Liffrig, aside from the face-off shenanigans, which every single face-off he did the same stuff, where he's just waiting for someone to put their stick down, and then he'll give them the warning. I think it was at least a dozen times they had to redo a face-off. Yep. It's just insane. And that lift rig, they're seeing incompetence to the point where he blew the whistle dead. Did you catch this on Friday where there was a delayed penalty on St. Cloud? And so they pulled the goalie, and it was the linesman, lift rig, who blew the play dead because he thought it was too many men on the ice. It's like, dude, this is a pretty elementary standard situation here that you're going to come across a couple of times a game. A couple of icings they missed, and it was a clown show of a officiating performance. But like I said, I don't think it was tilted one way or the other. It was just bad all around. Glad you brought that up first and not me.
Yeah, it's, there were just so many, what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tripping calls on the week on Saturday's game alone. And it's like, it was...
Struggle to really get a game flow going. That first period on Friday, the first period ended right around like exactly the same time that the Duluth Western game went to the second period. They started at the same time. That's how slow the North Dakota St. Cloud game was. And the Western Duluth game was like it was 2-2. So there was 4 goals. It's not like it was a quick period with no breaks in the action. That just gives you an idea.
It takes 3 times as long for the linesman to drop the puck.
Yeah.
So
and he's doing the thing where he kind of does like he like squats. He does this whole thing about like getting down, and then he did it every single time, very deliberate on it. And yeah, and I don't think it was favoring North Dakota, but in the faceoff draws, North Dakota was murdering St. Cloud all weekend. It seemed like all the big ones too. Faceoff draws in the beginning of a power play or a penalty kill situation, seemed like North Dakota win all those. It was a frustrating weekend in all those, even just the smaller areas like faceoffs. Didn't seem like there was any part of the game where St. Cloud had the edge.
So North Dakota's got Omaha and Colorado College the next 2 weekends at home. They're going to be without Sanderson. So it's, it's going to be weird for me to say after a team that just took 5 of 6 points convincingly. But it's a good time for Sanderson to miss some games. I'll say that. I do think they'll probably take at least 3 out of 4. Maybe one of those games they'll kind of falter. But again, that's a pedestrian team, and it's to see us come out with that kind of effort on a team that was kind of on the ropes there after 4 straight losses, 5 if you count the under 18, which I don't. But you needed to come up with some kind of better effort, and it was just squandered this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. I can't disagree with that.
Now, with us kind of turning the page then, we got Denver on the horizon. They've announced the schedule. They did end up rescheduling for the Minnesota Duluth series, and to our thought, they were going to, throw in some Tuesday games. That was kind of our consensus. It was either that, or I also said that I didn't think they were going to reschedule and just kind of say, "Boop, not going to happen." But so 4th, 5th, 8th, 2 at Denver, home against Minnesota Duluth. Denver's got a solid squad, and it's, we're falling, like you said, closer and closer to 6th, 7th, and being the odd man out when it comes to the home ice advantage in the playoffs. And I was playing around a little bit with the Pairwise customized tool and whatnot, just kind of looking. All things are the same with every other team. Just kind of seeing where about the Huskies would land in for the rest of the series. And like you said, obviously, splitting all these series, I think, is really key. But the big ones are losses always have more of an effect than wins. I think losing to bad teams hurts you way more than beating good teams in where St. Cloud State is right now. So playing with that, Omaha and Colorado College, those are series that we really need to win. It's not do or die. I'm not on the edge of the cliff here or anything along those lines, but this we have to bounce back. We're down Hentges, we're down Perbix. Again, Hentges I didn't think he did that much throughout the weekend, but Perbix is going to be a big hole factored in all 3 goals on Saturday's game. So it's going to be key that we kind of get back, right the ship, and kind of see what Shayak does behind the bench, because it's coming into the stretch. It's not do or die this weekend, no matter what. But geez, some type of a split can really help our chances.
Yeah, or even just getting overtime and salvaging some RPI points out of the deal. Just can't go 0-4 the next. Well, I guess you got the Duluth game in there too. Can't go 0-5 in the next 2 weeks, and I don't think they will. But I agree that losing to Denver's 3 in pairwise, Western is 4. Losing to these teams, you're not going to tumble in the pairwise. You do that, and you're probably not even going to tumble that much if you lose one of those Omaha games. Although is that the weekend? No, that the Olympics guys are still going to be gone for that weekend as well. I still like the match. I still like the matchup against Omaha, but at least in the next 2 weeks, you're protected a little bit just because the schedule is so tough. You're playing all top 10 pairwise teams, but like I said, you just can't just make a run here of a big losing streak. Got to avoid that, and I think they will. We'll learn a lot about that this weekend. We previewed Denver a couple of weeks ago, I suppose. And you can not much else I can add to what we already said 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. Denver's not missing anybody for the Olympics, which is a little surprising, because it's not like they don't have guys like Brink or Gutman or Savoy or these kind of guys that would potentially help the Olympic squad. I'm surprised that they didn't have anyone invited or at least representing the team, so that they're already a good team as it is, and they're going to be playing a St. Cloud team without 2 of their best players. So from the Olympics effect standpoint, you got to give Denver a little bit of an edge versus if they were to play the original scheduled date from a few weeks ago. But I don't know. They looked beatable this weekend against Miami, so it's possible that you can go in there and beat them on one of those games. So I hope so. One of the Friday games sounds like that's a CBS game. Yep. So everyone gets to fish around, get their YouTube TV trial, or however you're gonna stream the game, or depend on the KVSC guys or radio guys. Let's hope for a good weekend. Like I said, I just don't want to get swept. That's the goal.
What kind of surprises me with Denver, like I said in the last podcast, I believe, how they kind of load up one line. I still think they do, but they're getting quite a bit of scoring from really everywhere. And you're looking at the overall, team statistics between goals per game for Denver and for St. Cloud State, and they're both up there. Both, I think, are averaging over 4 goals per game. So it's, you expect that it's going to be a very offensive-minded series, but St. Cloud hasn't, like you said, hasn't played that well on the road. And they've got a lot of questions in regard to that. And before anybody asks, I don't think it's Olympic ice. I think that's just an easy cop-out narrative that people like to say that's holding St. Cloud back, like it's a magical elixir that all of a sudden we're going to win championship after championship if we played on 85 instead of 100. But it, just in general, being able to perform on the road and, during travel and whatnot, it's obviously incredibly important, especially when it comes to tournament time. Something that the Huskies really haven't been able to do. And, we really haven't been able to make any long trips either. With this, even our non-conference schedule, everything was really tight, close together, close into St. Cloud. So, this is a really key series on that front as well. And we gotta we got to just show up with a lot more effort than we did over this weekend, because if we showed up with the same effort that we did against North Dakota, we're just going to get steamrolled out of Denver.
Yeah, and 9 guys. They got 9 guys.
Nine times?
9 times.
9 times. 9 times. 9 times.
On the stat sheet, there's a Denver player with over 20 points, including a couple of defensemen in that list. Their top 2 lines, I mean, that top line, as we mentioned, Gutman, Savoy, Brink, all solid players, good players. Second line, Mazer, Rizzo, Cameron Wright has 16 goals, actually leads the team in goals scored. That's a top line. You got that Brett Stately, who's been one of their best players over the last few years. He's centering the third line right now. I mean, that gives you an idea of their scoring depth. And like I said, they got a couple of those defensemen, Barons and Benning. Yeah, Benning. Yep. They've got over 20 points as well, and they play a pretty tight defensive game as well. So I mean, this is a pretty damn good Denver team. And
they're averaging 4.6 goals per game.
And I am. They beat up on some weaker opponents earlier in the year. They scored a bunch of goals on ASU. They routed Air Force a couple of times. They had their way with Miami. But
how did they struggle against Miami?
Well, I mean, that's how did Duluth tie Miami the week before they got blitzed by the Huskies? It's hockey, man. You know, like it's every week is something different. And then even Krona, their goalie, you know, he had prior to this last weekend, he had 3 straight shutouts. So he's more than capable of going on a run of shutout hockey. So this will be quite the test. Maybe the biggest test all year. This might be the best team they play all year. And saying something because they've already played Mankato and Western, you know, is up there as well. So it's just another notch in the grind of the schedule for the Huskies. Let's hope we can at least salvage something out of the weekend. Don't lay a complete goose egg up there.
If you were to pick your favorite John Hughes movie, you know, now that I'm just thinking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off,
that's probably my favorite. I mean, what else we got? I got to think here. 16 Candles, and then he like wrote Vacation. Didn't direct it.
I mean, and that's the thing is, like, are we talking director, producer? I mean, I suppose there's a couple. I mean, but yeah, like you said, Vacation, 16 Candles,
Breakfast Club's up there as well.
Pretty in Pink, Uncle Buck, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
That actually might be my favorite. I do like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I don't think I've seen all of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Really? I've not seen Pretty in Pink. So
I've seen most of Pretty in Pink. I saw Uncle Buck. That's good.
It's been a while since I've seen it. I do remember liking it though.
But yeah, Breakfast Club was always I'm a communication studies minor, and that was pretty much always our go-to movie when it talks about small group communication and whatnot and communication dynamics.
That is a good one.
All right, where were we? I'm sorry. Just anytime I hear 9 times, I think about Ferris. Ferris is a good one too.
Not Ferris effing State, but Ferris Bueller.
No, Ferris
maybe that's where Ferris State got its name from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Maybe that's where they took the name from it.
They drove the Porsche from Chicago to
Big Rapids. And I've watched. I'm watching all the Dirty Harry movies. There was 5 of them. Can you name any of the 4 sequels? And hint, they're not Dirty Harry 2, Dirty Harry 3. They all have specific titles. They don't have Dirty
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, that is actually the subtitle to Magnum Force, the second one. Magnum Force, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact, and the Deadpool. They're not great, but it's kind of fun to notch them all off my list.
Wait a minute. Was it like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Wasn't that one of them?
That was a different series that Clint Eastwood starred in. Jeez. Those were Westerns.
How many movies was Clint Eastwood in?
A lot. And I've watched a lot of them over the last couple of years. I used to hate him, particularly as like a director. I hated things like $1 Million Baby and Mystic River. those kind of movies. But I really have gotten into him. I think you need to be a little older to appreciate him. Unforgiven, I think, is fantastic. That and Good, the Bad, the Ugly are my two favorite westerns. He's very prolific. I mean, he's over 90 years old, and he made a movie last year, starred and directed it. So he's and he doesn't seem like he's running out of steam either. He'll make it to 100 easy.
Western, it's not that big of a genre for me. Like, other than, obviously Star Wars. But like anything other than that as a Western, I'm not really drawn to it. I think I've only really seen a handful. Tombstone, which obviously, but even that, that might be it for Westerns.
Well, part of the reason is that not many of them are made. I mean, after the 70s, the 80s, for instance, there's probably a dozen Westerns, period, in that decade. Unforgiven kind of kicked off a minor resurgence. That's kind of why we got things like Tombstone and Wyatt Earp in the early 90s, because Unforgiven was an Oscar winner and big box office film. For a while, yeah, Eastwood was one of the few guys to do them for a decade plus there. And yeah, we still don't really get a ton of them nowadays. It's not like horror. Like, horror movies are seemingly like the most popular genre. Westerns have seemingly, and they used to be much more like the B movie staple. You'd get they were cranking Westerns out in the 40s and 50s, and to a lesser extent the 60s, but they took a hiatus for quite a long time. But there were some good ones. I mean, it's not my favorite genre, but there's some pretty darn good ones.
I can't believe I forgot Blazing Saddles. Of course, I've seen Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, I mean, that's more of a comedy than a Western, I'd say. But yeah,
it's a Western comedy, right?
It counts.
So, yeah, Unforgiven, I don't really know, like, I don't think I've actually seen a John Wayne movie. I saw the remake of True Grit,
which I liked. Yeah, I haven't seen much of John. I liked the True Grit remake when I saw it in the theater. There's not a ton of John Wayne. The Searchers I've seen in a film class. Not really into that era of Western. It's more the postmodern revisionist Westerns that I like. The three Eastwood ones that he did with Sergio Leone are all spectacular. It's particularly Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More. They each get better. It's not really a trilogy, it's a loose trilogy, but they get better as they go along. And ending with Good, the Bad, the Ugly, which is a great movie. You don't need to be a fan of Westerns, I think, to like that movie. Same with Unforgiven. If you're on the fence about Westerns, that's a good one to start on because it's accessible and you'll get the Western vibe from that movie. And it's very good.
So if you were ranking it like against Tombstone, like have a Tombstone meter here. Are we above or below Tombstone? Don't shake your head. Are you saying you're not a fan of Tombstone?
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Ooh, okay.
I don't like remember any of the scenes from it. I saw it a long time ago. So maybe I'll have to revisit it. It would be tough to beat Unforgiven based on I have a high respect for that film. And I saw it because it's a Best Picture winner. Fairly, I mean, it's 30 years old at this point, but it's not like it's a black and white movie or anything like that from 70 years ago. But it's like I don't. Is there any lines from it? It doesn't seem like it's one of those movies, and particularly like a Best Picture winner, that it seemingly stayed in the conversation in film. So that's kind of why I was interested to see it, and I was kind of blown away by it. And I think it holds up very well. So, yeah, I didn't go into it with any sort of expectations of me really enjoying it as much as I did. Maybe that's why I liked it so much, because I had pretty much no expectations about it, but it's a good one.
So it was 1993 Academy Awards. That's when Al Pacino won for Scent of a Woman.
I think we've mentioned that on the show before. Yeah.
Let's see, who was it up against?
I think Scent of a Woman was nominated. I don't think 92 is that great of a year film-wise, but like 93, 94 were much better years.
Howard's End, Scent of a Woman, The Crying Game, and one of my wife's favorites. Maybe that's not, but she's always interested when it's on TNT. A few good men.
Oh, yeah, and it's always on TNT. I think
it's always on TV.
About once a week.
A Few Good Men followed by Shawshank is usually your 1-2 punch when it comes, and it's a good way to spend about 5 hours. So, Micah Miller scored his 4th shorthanded goal.
Player of the weekend?
6 is the record for shorthanded goals in a season with obviously Mark Hardigan. So, if you were to make a prop bet here, do you think he ties Hardigan? Do you think he beats it? Do you think he comes short? Where do you think he's going to land on the pantheon of shorthanded specialists?
That's a tough thing to predict. I mean, it's weird. I don't know if you thought I was kidding. He probably would have been my player of the weekend. I don't know if we were giving up that bit because the weekend was so bad, but
no, and to tell you the truth, I forgot about it. So,
well, I'll do it right now because you can't really. No one had a good game on Friday, so this really comes down to Saturday, or at least who didn't stand out as being terrible. Like Perbix had a good game on Saturday, but he had kind of a bad game on Friday to kind of cancel each other out. Whereas Miller was inoffensive on Friday. It's not like he stuck out as being a problem. And on Saturday, I just that 3rd goal was great. He burned Sanderson on that play.
Yeah.
And him having that breakaway type speed and kind of undressing the best player on the ice for North Dakota was, made it that much more of a highlight reel type goal. Is he going to get what? So he's at 4, you said?
He's at 4.
He's got to get 2 more. And we got, 12 games left or so just in the regular season? 10, 12?
Yep, we got 12 games left in the regular season. Obviously at least 2 in the playoffs.
Yeah. You know what? I'll say he's going to tie it. I think he can get 2 more. I don't know about 3, but I like his chances to tie it. How about you?
That's crazy that we're even just 4 shorthanded goals so far in the season is ridiculous. I'm gonna say I'm gonna root for it either way. So I'm gonna say yes, he does. He's gonna beat it. He's gonna get 7.
All right,
and it's gonna come.
I like it.
It's gonna come in the NCAA regional. Is when he's gonna get his 7th shorthanded goal.
The first game or the final, the regional final.
The first game.
All right.
Well, and then we'll lose that game 6-2.
It's not going to have ourselves. We'll write that down. We got all these other predictions that we made all this year.
All these other predictions, I'll put it on my whiteboard.
I'm still waiting for Hrenak to score a goal, which was I think the first show this year. I predicted that, and that hasn't happened
he
yet.
almost gave up that one where he
tried. Yep, he tried to
save that one.
Yeah, but yep, I like how Miller's doing it, and he's at least gonna get. He's not done at 4. I guarantee that.
Yeah, I would. Miller is a good choice. He's consistent. I thought Chase Brand, he had a pretty good. He had a pretty good series. That's actually who Go Huskies Woo picked. Nobody for Friday, but Chase Brand he guessed for Saturday, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of fair. I mean, it was just one of those where you can't really say fill in the blank had an excellent weekend. So, but yeah, mine would probably go back to Miller. So, around the league, was there anything else that you kind of wanted to touch up on? I'll just kind of give a rundown here of where we're at with the conference standings. Denver sitting up at top at 32 points, North Dakota 29, Western Michigan 26, Duluth right behind at 25, and then St. Cloud at 19, Omaha at 17, Colorado College at 14, Miami is terrible. So it's more and more the season goes on, that series, these 4 games coming up against Minnesota Duluth are huge when it comes into the standings and getting home ice. I think home ice, we're going to be in the NCHC tournament at the XL, and on away, I don't know if we go up the deck and get it done.
Well, you're not going to go. You're not going to go up to the deck to do it. First, I suppose it's right. It's still right, like next door to Amsoil, so it's in the same complex. But yeah, they stopped playing at the deck about 10 years ago.
I was gonna say, yeah, like what, 09 maybe is when they stopped. So
something 10 or
something
11
like that. I miss the deck. I'm gonna say it. The deck had charm. I don't know if you ever saw a game at the deck.
I did not. But like I said, it's still standing.
Yeah, it had opera style seating, so it's like straight up and down, and you're looking straight down at the ice, and it's like playing in a pinball table. The way the dimensions were in that, I think it was like 194 by 79 or something like that. It was just ridiculous how small.
Like the old Chicago Stadium. I think that was the same way. And it wasn't like wasn't the old Madison rink similarly like small, not 200 feet. I like those kind of quirks. To your point, like I said, they're 6 points behind. So in order to catch up to them, you got to make up the 6 points, which means you really got to take 3 out of 4 against them just to get in that conversation. So that means most likely taking these 2 games at St. Cloud and then splitting up in Duluth at a minimum. Easier said than done. I like how they haven't played yet this year, so we're all is going on hypothetical how we've seen the other teams play. I like how St. Cloud matches up against Duluth, but I say that every year. And Duluth is racks up national titles, so who knows?
Duluth also has an off weekend before playing at St. Cloud on Tuesday.
They always get the breaks.
Yeah, right. They will be without. I think Cates is gone on the Olympic team.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's a huge part of their offense too. Duluth isn't a big powerhouse when it comes to putting up points. You got Biondi. I don't know. I don't hear his name because we haven't played
Biondi.
Blake. Really kind of driving the offense with Noah. So Noah being out, I think is going to hurt Duluth more than Henches being out for St. Cloud.
Really?
Since Henches has been absent for a lot of the season anyway for St. Cloud. Obviously, Perbix is big. I still think St. Cloud has the depth for it. So I still think we're gonna be okay when it comes to that series, but you got to show up for it. And Denver on the horizon. We got to start making some hay because I don't like our chances going on the road the way we played so far this season.
Yeah. As far as the week that was in the NCHC, I guess the only big surprise was, and I don't even know if it's that much a surprise now, but Omaha dropping a game to CC. If they would have swept that series, they would have 20 points and be ahead of the Huskies at this point. Now, again, they have 2 games in hand to St. Cloud, so it's not a even number of games there. But still, the point remains, you're only 2 points ahead of Omaha. And but I think the main thing there is Omaha continues to just not impress as far as like these are games. I know CC's not as god awful as they were in years past. I think they're a decentish team, not good, but not horrible. But a team like Omaha on the bubble, you'd think those are games that they need all 6 points. A series like that is right pickings, but they've done that all year. I mean, they dropped a game to Miami earlier the year. They lost a game to CC at home earlier. So when they've been in the conference play, they just don't seem to take the bull by the horns and make a statement weekend, which again makes me confident when St. Cloud does play them that even without those guys that we mentioned, I think they're going to be fine. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. All I just wanted to mention, I thought that was the most, maybe not, I don't know. It was a notable result that I wanted to take note of.
Yeah, very much so.
I did want to mention too, I'm not knowledgeable enough as far as doing a Olympic preview, because it's going to be starting relatively soon here. Probably by the time we have a next podcast, they'll be underway, I think. Pretty sure they said that they were flying out yesterday. So they're probably in China as we speak. I just want, with this, how they ended up doing it this year, it's just frustrating to me, where I don't understand, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. What is USA Hockey's goal when it comes to Olympic hockey at this point? I feel like they need to, all the interested parties need to get together here, and well in advance of the 2026 Olympics, the next time that this thing happens, they need to get on the same page as far as what are we going to do with the Olympics? How are we going to populate the team? Is this going to be a college-heavy thing like it used to be, like in the Miracle on Ice days? Or is this going to be something that the NHL players are going to participate in? Does it matter? Does a gold medal in hockey matter to the same extent that it once did? I think that's a question they need to ask, because I don't know how, if that's, it certainly doesn't strike me the same way that it would have in 1980, for instance. But you just can't, what I'm saying is you can't have a situation where it's 3 weeks before the games start and you're picking guys off of college rosters in the middle of the season. When they used to do it in the 80s, prior to the NHL participation, those like the 1980 team, they played an entire year. They weren't on their college teams. They took an entire year off and played as the Olympic team for an entire season. They played like 60 games before they even went to the Olympics that year. And so it's kind of like the U18 team, but obviously now with an age restriction, would kind of be the modern day equivalent to that. I don't think it's really good for the NCAA and these specific teams involved to lose certain number of guys in the middle of the year with very little lead time to prepare for that. Coaches, coaching staff as well. I don't like and like I said, when we talked about it, when they were announced to the team, I think it's a great opportunity for Larson and for the players involved. But I just don't like the rushed approach, and we're always waiting on whatever the NHL does, and then we got to scramble to find a plan B. First of all, do you still hold USA getting Olympic gold is a prestigious thing worth attaining? And then B, do you want it to be a pro, NHL guys that do it? Or would you prefer something where it is more, where it's all college guys, like how the Miracle on Ice team was? Or something like this mishmash of NCAA guys and then AHL retreads. It just strikes me that the current situation, not only the timing of how it came together, but just the makeup of somewhat randomness of pro guys playing in Europe, AHL guys, and then high-end NCAA guys, doesn't strike me as a very cohesive plan on how to go forward. Ranting and rambling here. What's your take on all this?
Well, I think everything is going to be addressed in the next NHL CBA. And when they get the next labor agreement, I think there is going to be a clause. Because from what I've gathered, the players do want the option to go. And it sounds like it probably would have happened this year if it wasn't for Omicron coming out and kind of raging its head and causing NHL to cancel some or postpone some games, and then needing to make those up. Basically they were like, we can't afford to shut it down for a couple of weeks. And NHL does a horrible job marketing anyway, so they wouldn't be able to market off of the exposure of the Olympics gets anyway, because they're terrible at it. So from what I imagine is that next year, or the next coming years, when they renegotiate for the CBA, it's going to say, yep, we're going to have something set in place to go. And with that, this question is going to kind of go by the wayside. And if it doesn't, I don't think it's fair for USA Hockey to just kind of sit and wait, twiddle their thumbs to see what happens with the NHL. I think they need to set up a program or a different team where, like you said, they just take a year off and play as a team, maybe play a college or, some type of other schedule to really prepare, or exhibitions against other, Olympic teams. We can do that as well. So it's, I think it just depends on the CBA. If there isn't a CBA in place where it says that they're going to go, then yeah, USA Hockey has to actually put the roster together ahead of time and say, nope, we're not going to take NHL players anyway. So that's kind of where I see this all going.
And if you had your druthers, you would want NHL players playing in the Olympics versus NCAA? Okay.
Yeah. I just want the best. And whether they're pros or not, I would want that. So, and, looking back, like the games in like Salt Lake City or whatnot, I mean, those were absolutely fantastic,
Vancouver
hockey games to watch. Or Vancouver, yeah.
Well, both. So, I mean, both of those Olympics were pretty good. And 06 was the year that Parrish and Malone, I think, were on the team. Or in
Torino was garbage. I don't remember anything from that Olympics.
I remember because they were on at like 2:00 in the morning. I remember staying up for a couple of those games. But the 2010 one, the Vancouver, I definitely watched a bunch of those, and that Salt Lake. So.
But really, it all comes down to me, when I'm going to be watching hockey or whatnot in the Olympics, I'm way more excited for the women's hockey. And I'm way more excited for USA Canada because those games are intense. They're fun. They're action packed. And you can tell those teams just absolutely hate each other. It makes for some fun hockey to watch.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, let's hope that that they can all come together on a plan here. I don't mind either. I don't really have a strong preference. I think I agree with you that having the best players, is the best way forward. So the NHLers, having them participate, I would say would be the best. But as long as there is not a distinct, tilted advantage if certain countries are going to play with pros versus if others are only going to play with amateur players or a mix of what we have this year. Obviously the Miracle on Ice is legendary for the reason of being the amateurs against maybe the pros. And that can be fun as well. So I just want them to be able to come up with a plan that doesn't need to be reshuffled at the last minute. I just don't like how it came together here. And maybe that's because it's affecting St. Cloud in a way. It could. It has the possibility of negatively affecting them. But yeah, like you said, it's going to be something that they're going to have to hash over with the NHL owners, the Players Association. Let's hope that they can at least just come up with something that is a set in stone plan. That's no guesswork. Okay, the Olympics are coming this year. What are we going to do this time? Needs to be some consistency in the approach. So that's mainly what I'm looking for.
I held an Olympic silver medal. Did I ever tell you that?
I don't think so. Whose was it?
Ann Schleppers. She
from St. Cloud.
Yep, St. Cloud.
From St. Cloud. Yep.
Defenseman for the 2014 team in Sochi that got bronze in probably the most heartbreaking hockey fashion that I've ever seen, where they gave up.
Oh yeah.
That they kind of collapsed in the third and the last in overtime, but she was down at the Blue Line South, and And I talked to her, or, I came over and talked to her and got a picture taken with me holding a silver medal. It was pretty cool.
She was there for an event. Like, come meet Ann Schleppers. Or she just goes to the blue line and has her silver medal wherever she goes.
She was there with her family and eating food.
And she just happened
to go. I didn't go like up. I think she was like meeting like, some of the bartenders or owners of that. Like, it wasn't like an event or wasn't advertised that I just happened to be there and she was there. And yeah, she had her medal and she was showing people.
I guess if I was an Olympic medalist, I'd probably keep that thing around my neck at all times.
Well, it was right weird. After the season too. And I think it was just more like people are going to ask about it. So it's like, kind of give them, I still talk about it. So it clearly made an impression. And she was so nice. You know who she's married to, by the way? Denard Span.
Really?
Yeah.
I was going to come up with
how
two
about
random
that for
names.
A crossing of worlds? Just
he's retired now, isn't he?
I think he's retired now.
He's a good little player, though. I liked him.
He was a great. I was ticked when the Twins traded him.
Well,
it was.
He got to a point where he was a little too expensive for the poll ads there. So
can't pull out the pocketbooks for that. So that's my silver medal story there. Those things, the Sochi medals at least, they're heavy. They're like I guess I didn't think about like how much a medal would weigh.
It's a precious metal.
It's
the gold is probably even more is even heavier.
Anything else you kind of wanted to touch on here before we wrap up?
The sitch in Mich.
Well, Michigan is an S show, to say the least, right now.
Number one in pairwise.
So I guess they got that going for them, which is nice.
Behind the scenes, not so number one.
Tech Hockey Guide submitted a Freedom of Information Act to go emails for Mel Pearson.
Not even that. It was some random guy, some random fan. It wasn't even someone that works for that blog. It was just some season ticket holder. He's like, I'm just going to play Woodward and Bernstein and file a FOIA request. And they think they nailed Pearson on the smoking gun email that goes back to the summer, where he's like, we want to get out of this. He made a mention of like, we've been talking about this since August or something, that we want to maybe scrub the GLI this year. And then emails a few weeks before the game was supposed to take place, where he's sort of prodding one of the trainers or someone in the athletic or medical staff. Can you make this seem like you're taking the decision out of my hands? Which he was on record saying this was the training staff. I didn't have any say in this. Well, this directly contradicts that claim of Pearson. So you can make all the ducking jokes that you want. That's bad enough. But then on top of that, a separate report through either was it the student newspaper or was it one of the Detroit papers? Somewhere, a reporter got wind of, it seems like a bigger story as far as multiple allegations, where I think the AD is named as far as like the toxic work environment claim. There was a COVID thing where apparently Pearson was trying to get this, going back to last NCAA tournament when they were supposed to play in Fargo, and then they had to cancel that game because of COVID. Some possible shenanigans there, and a couple of other claims, and so they're launching an investigation into all of those. The school is, and this coming off the heels of Union coach Rick Bennett, who won a national title with them a few years ago. He was fired for at this time kind of vague reasons, but something to do with, bad locker room.
Technically, he resigned.
He resigned, yes. He was put on leave for an investigation, and then that seemed to be substantiated, so then he just said, I'll save you the trouble of firing me, and he was let go, or he resigned. So it seems like part of that's a similar claim going on in the Michigan, on the Michigan side. Not the best PR, not the best week for Mel Pearson and the Michigan hockey team, put it that way. And, it's possible that these allegations lead to nothing. I know earlier in the year, there was this story brewing about the Omaha USHL team. Check out the Rink Live did a follow-up on that. Turns out the allegations there, which seemed to be pretty severe allegations, seems like those were all sort of nothing, much ado about nothing. So it's possible this could blow over the same way.
USA Hockey did their own independent research and pretty much was like, all of those reports were wrong. And then that was the end of it.
It was a weird
say what you
story.
want about Schlossman and whatnot, but I'm going to believe his journalistic work. So
we'll bring it up as far as Michigan, like I said, not having the best week off the ice, even as they handily took care of a god-awful Wisconsin team on the ice. Any other thoughts on that?
All of this is coming, and you just hear report after report about hockey culture and whatnot. I don't know. We just have to do a better job, and we can't keep having these things happen and keep propping up. It just gets exhausting as a fan of trying to justify being a fan when all of the other things are kind of going around. So, it's tough to kind of comment on it right now because we don't know, kind of the full details and whatnot, but I don't know. Yeah, well, it's just tough. And I just hope we get to a point where there's a lot less controversies in hockey.
Yeah. Again, I'm reserving judgment for this. I mean, we can, the GLI thing seems to be pretty cut and dry. I think he's definitely open to criticism on how he handled that, and seemingly the lies that he put out in the media, trying to play damage control there. That looks bad enough. These other allegations, I want to wait until their investigation is done, but it's tricky because the Union situation, Union sucks this year, and they haven't been very good for the last couple of years. He did win a national title for them, true, and this wasn't just some fly-by-night guy. But bad season, and the team's not having a good year, makes that decision maybe a little easier. This is a situation where number one team in pairwise, he's this recruiting genius that's brought all these top-line blue chippers that we can't hear enough about. And so you get into the trickier situation of, do we do the right thing? Let's say if the allegations are exactly what, and not to say that it is, but exactly what Bennett was alleged to do, or something in that ballpark. The right thing to do would be to let him go, because that's not tolerated at the school. But are you going to do that a month to go in the season with the best team in the country? It's the whole sort of, when is it all about athletics and when is it about, the morals and standing up for what's right and all that. That's a quandary that wasn't in place at Union. And so I'm interested to see how it handles, or if they decide to, the investigation kind of, the results are after the season. I'm wondering how the chain of events is going to go here, but
I'll just say I don't trust Michigan to
just based on the small sample size of how they handled the GLI thing. yeah, now they got some like national consulting group that's in charge of this. So maybe that gives it a little bit of distance. It's not just the university doing the investigation. But yeah, it's a much bigger situation and much bigger school name brand with Michigan. So yeah, interested to see how this shakes out and how it's handled going forward. But yeah, like I said, not good for the sport to make headlines like this, and hopefully we can get a resolution that is satisfactory.
Well, that about does her. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to the podcast. We appreciate everybody, and thank you so much. We'll be back next week. Check out my Twitter, in regard to the Tuesday's game, but for sure Monday is gonna work. Maybe an extra pod during the week, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. So, until next time, thanks everybody. Go Huskies! Woo! Woo!